Welcome to episode number 321 of the Marine Layer podcast. We'll hand out some reliever grades for the 2025 season, and we have a theory on why Jorge Polanco is taking so long to make a decision about his 2026 option.
A reminder to you guys just before we start the show, just make sure you're downloading these episodes if you're listening to the podcast on the audio side. If you do that and you make sure to rate and review and download the episodes, leave it 5 stars. That's all a bunch of ways you can support the channel, and it really, really does help if you guys go and do that. So please leave a 5-star review and go download. If you're on YouTube, go like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. You can check us out all on our website, marinelayerpod.com. You can go get yourself some merch like TJ's wearing right now. There's a bunch of merch all over at our website, our Patreon, marinelayerpod.com, and then check us out all across social media at marinelayerpod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. 1-1 from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game at 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network. Recording here on Tuesday evening, November 4th. This is the first episode we have done without a game in between recordings since early February. How does it feel?
See, this is when it's the time of the year that really starts to suck. It's dark at 4 o'clock and there's no baseball and we're not close to the winter meetings yet. We still got a month to go. I shouldn't say it sucks. It doesn't suck. We still want to talk baseball. There's still interesting storylines. But, like, for the baseball people out there, November is a little bit of the dark times on the calendar because it's like, it is the deadest time of the year.
Spin Zone, what if this is our peak? Because we can just play Fantasyland.
You can play a lot of Fantasyland. That's fun. And getting to hypothesize on a bunch of scenarios is fun. But I feel like a lot of that really starts to kick into gear when the winter meeting starts happening and you start to hear rumors and you start to plug and play ideas into our idea board and onto our blueprint because everybody fantasizes about what their team could do in the offseason. Well, unless you're like the Pirates. But yeah, it's...
I mean, they do. They just dream of the team getting sold.
Well,
they're not alone.
Well, anyway, on that note, yeah, we can hypothesize about a lot of things, that's for sure. But I do miss baseball already.
Speaking of hypothesizing, this is a great way to start off this episode. There's been some hypothesizing in the Mariners online forums over the last couple of days, and Lyle and I thought we'd give our take on it. So the Mariners have come out and they've been deciding on options for players, whether they want to pick up an option or not pick up an option for whether or not they want the player to be on the 2026 roster. Andres Muñoz had his option picked up. Shocker. Mitch Garver had his option declined. Another shocker. But there's one option that still hasn't been decided of as of Tuesday night, as of recording. The deadline is Friday?
Yeah,
Friday?
I believe so.
Yeah. So Jorge Polanco has until Friday, I believe it's his decision, whether or not he wants to take $6 million to play for the Mariners next season. In an objective, staring at it way right now, I don't think he is going to pick it up. However, I think there is a way you could think about it for it working out for the Mariners and for Jorge Polanco if he does pick it up. What would that be?
So let me just say this. I actually don't know how much discourse there's been online about this. Have you seen people talking about what we're about to throw out there?
Jage was talking about it.
Oh, okay. So maybe a couple people have. And I was thinking about it a little bit in my own right, and I texted you about it. And to be fair, there was somebody on Brock and Salk this morning who texted in on Tuesday and asked about this potential idea too. So I thought maybe this would be interesting to talk about. Is there a chance the Mariners are already working with Jorge Polanco to get something done before Friday's deadline?
Yes, absolutely. There's a chance. Maybe they'd thought about this a year in it, or maybe not a year in advance, but once Jorge was playing well this year, like they know what the budget is, right? Mm-hmm. The best way to go around to get around the fact that Jorge Polanco has earned himself a lot more money in free agency is to bring that number down. And the best way to bring that money down is to incorporate it into the current contract. So here's the idea floated out there for Jorge Polanco. Jage threw these numbers out here. I'll credit him on the exact numbers for what he's suggesting. So he's suggesting that Jorge Polanco would roughly get in free agency a 2-year, $24 million contract, which for someone at his age, playing or the lack of playing a position that he is at this stage of his career, it would make more sense that he's going to get a short deal for a higher AAV. What if the Mariners encompass that into his current deal, paying him more guaranteed money as opposed to what he would get on the free agent market, while also helping the Mariners out and getting a lower AAV? So how does the math work out on that?
So maybe this will become a 3-year, $30 million deal, and it could become $10 million a year?
A problem arises, of course, if a team offers Jorge Polanco a 3-year, $30 million deal as a free agent, which maybe he'll sleuth around and try and get before Friday's deadline, and whether or not he accepts or declines this money. But it's something to think about, where the Mariners' budget is at right now. And I put a post out about it this morning on social media trying to crunch some numbers. I was a little bit off on my numbers. So as you're listening to this or watching us on YouTube, think about the numbers right now and how it's adding up math-wise in your head. The Mariners have come out and they've said about the $164 million payroll that they had at the end of the season this past year in 2025 is about their starting point. Starting point can be interpreted a number of ways, but let's pretend that's a rough area of where they're going to be once spring training starts. Let's just say that.
Although, to your point about we don't know exactly what that means, there is a chance it means, I'm not saying it's a high percentage chance, but a chance that it means that should be where people expect the minimum of the payroll to be when the offseason comes to an end, and it has the potential to be well up above that. It's possible.
That'd be great.
I mean, we know they brought in a lot of money this year.
Just to note for everybody to remember, the Mariners' highest payroll ever is $171 million.
Now, inflation's going to change that, but
inflation does change it. But to set a record payroll, they would need to go above that number.
Sure.
So consider that. But let's just use $164 million as a number here, as a soft ceiling for now.
Yeah, and
because that's what we know.
Right. And let me be fair really quickly. I guess we don't know for a fact the Mariners brought in a ton of money, but you can only assume based off where attendance was, playoffs, ticket sales, jersey sales, etc. You can only assume they brought in a pretty good chunk of change this year.
The number that the Mariners are going to be at after all their players settle their arbitration and they add up all the money from the players making league minimum going into next season is about $133 million. Spotrac had it at $143, but we got a couple emails about it. A couple people left comments about it. The math adds up a little bit cleaner to $133 million. So let's use that number. That gives the Mariners $31 million to spend to get to that sort of soft ceiling that they have right now. Jorge Polanco, if you were to sign him to a free agent deal, 2 for $24, he declines his option, gives you, I assume, a $12 million cap hit next year. If you want to sign Josh Naylor as well, Josh Naylor's projected market right now is as low as I think I've seen $17.5 million. I've seen it as high as over $20 million. Let's say Josh Naylor gets 20 on the open market per year. You're past your soft ceiling right there with just those two. Just replacing production from last season that you already had on the roster. But just because you had to give a raise, that pushes you past the $31 million that you had to spend. You spent $32 million for next season. But if Jorge Polanco takes a lower AAV and adds an extra year and that number is all of a sudden down to $10 million, then you're under that number. And then you still have technically a little bit of wiggle room that the Mariners would work around, I would say. That's a rough estimate right there. We're not even trading anyone away to create space in this. I'm just saying how a little thing like that can affect the payroll on the team.
And we said if they do something like bring back Naylor, bring back Polanco, and add a bullpen arm, that is a good offseason. So that would be 2 of the 3 moves right there. Who knows? Maybe they'd be willing to just spend a little bit more and go get Devin Williams too. It was like we talked about. We don't know if they're going to start the year firmly at $164-ish million. Dead stop. They could use a little bit more. They deem Devin Williams to be worth it and he'd be interested in playing here. They could do it. But yeah, that is in their budget. And if Jorge Polanco were to take the 3-year, $30 million deal, then yeah, it would make other acquisitions just a little bit easier.
I'm thinking in the Devin Williams camp, though. I think Spotrac was a little off.
Yeah, well,
Adam floated out there, and Spotrac projected $5.7 million. Not seeing a whole lot of $5.7 million for Devin Williams.
Adam Jude said roughly 1 for 10 is what he projected. I could see that.
I'd take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
If they get up to $164 million in 2026 payroll with those two players, though, I don't think they're spending $10 million on a reliever. Do you know the biggest takeaway I had from doing this exercise? Luis Castillo or Randy Arozarena are getting traded. Like I can't find a way the Mariners operate this offseason and upgrade in enough areas as they need to without trading one of those two and clearing space.
Well, they should just spend the 10 extra million bucks.
They should. But this is the Mariners we're talking about.
I'm just saying we don't know exactly what Jerry's comments mean for certainty. Maybe they'll spend a little extra.
And that would be great. That would make things a lot easier.
And then you don't have to trade those guys away.
No.
Because I don't know what you're getting back for either of those guys. I don't think it's going to help you much on your big league roster in 26. That's for sure.
No.
Anyway, we can focus on those guys later in the offseason because we'll have plenty of time to talk about it. I think we already discussed that that's a bad faith move to trade Arozarena. But in terms of Jorge Polanco, because that's the topic here, and in terms of what he think about this, because that's what I wanted to focus on a little bit before we get to the relievers. Yeah, I think he'd think about it. Now, we're going to get some answers here before Friday. Maybe this podcast will come out on Wednesday, and at some point on Wednesday, we find out he's declined his option and he's hitting free agency. But if you're Jorge Polanco, by all accounts, you liked it here in Seattle. By all accounts, you had success here, at least in year 2. And if you're him, think about what happened the first time you had to join a new organization and how things went. He had a tough first year. And could that be credited to injury? Could it be credited, though, to the fact that the change of scenery can be a tough adjustment for some players? Yeah, I think both those things are possible. We talked about it. Jorge Polanco spent nearly 15 years in one org. And in year 1 in a new organization, new spring training location, Arizona, not Florida, new city, new home, new drive to work, everything. Maybe it was a little bit of an adjustment. Isn't there a chance that he might not want to do that again? And if he's already comfortable in a certain place with a team he knows is going to be competitive, he would think about working something out early on and to just get it settled? Because he also signed late last winter. He could have things settled. Now, ultimately, money talks. And if the money's not there, he's not going to sacrifice everything. But if there's a deal on the table that's fair and there's something like this 3 for 30 deal out there, I bet you there's a chance he'd think about it.
If they offer him this, the money is talking. He gets 3 years. He's going to be 33 in the middle of next year. This is probably his last best chance at free agency and securing a multi-year deal for significant cash. And what better way to do that than to essentially cash in on your best case market? Like, he's not going to have another market like this as a free agent. So why not instead the Mariners just give you an extra $6 million in cash, essentially? Now, they could structure it differently than just doing 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 3 times. They could say, Jorge will pay you $6 million in 2025, really help us out in 26, really help us out from a salary cap perspective, and then you get 12 the next 2 years.
Well, not salary cap, but spending.
Budget cap. And work that out. And he gets paid more money than he would make perhaps on the open market. And he gets an extra year of security where he doesn't have to worry about looking for a job. That means a lot to some of these guys, getting those extra years. It's like Bryce Harper taking a 13-year contract for $330 million. Like, he helps out the Phillies with that, and the Phillies help him out by employing him for so long.
Right. Yeah, there's no doubt. We're going to find out here in the next couple days. This could all just be a nothing burger, and it ends up that Jorge just goes to free agency and starts to hit the open market. But I just feel like this is something he would probably consider, and I'd assume it's something the Mariners would want to consider, knowing that he's somebody that you can basically plug in as your DH a lot, and if you need him at second base in a pinch, you can put him at second base. And I hate to say it, but I don't want this to be the solution, but if something goes south with Naylor and he goes elsewhere, and you get Polanco back in the fold early, you have an emergency option here now at first base. I don't want that to be the full-time option and the permanent solution, but at least you have something in the fold early where you know you can build off it.
Do you think anyone else would offer Jorge Polanco 3 years?
Maybe. If a team feels like they're a bat away and they really liked what he did this year and saw he hit so well from both sides of the plate and had the playoff success. But again, if you're Polanco, do you want to pick up and move again? Do you want to go somewhere you've never been? Do you want to go through that change again? I don't know what type of effect that had on him in the first year and if it really killed him mentally. But if it did, and again, this is pure speculation, I have no idea. But if it did, maybe that draws him back to Seattle a little bit more. I mean, I can't imagine he's going to want to go back to Minnesota at this point. Minnesota's not going to pay him because they totally just tore down their whole roster at the deadline. And I'm going to guess Polanco doesn't want to play for an uncompetitive team. So I would assume he'd be pretty drawn to the Mariners, at least to some extent.
And getting that extra year without having to move, I think, is the best case scenario of all. It's if I go somewhere else, I have to take a 2-year deal, or I stay and I get 3. That sounds like a win to me. But it's up to Jorge Polanco. Him and his agency have a better idea of their market than we do.
Right.
So if someone is out there willing to pay $12 million a year for 3 years for Polanco, he's declining that option.
That's right.
So, and that's what he'll do. But it's something fun to think about. We will know probably by the next time we record whether or not he's going to take that $6 million and whether or not there's something attached to it or not. So we'll see. And then also, since this is our last grades episode that we're going to do, we have a mailbag on Friday, and then we're going to really start ramping up the off-season conversations. There's some fascinating conversations we need to have about some options out there. Yeah. I mean,
we already talked a little bit about Kazuma Okamoto on the last mailbag because we got a question about it, and maybe we'll dive into him even more as the offseason goes on. But there's a lot of guys that we've got to talk through. A lot of them.
Yeah.
Not just Kyle Tucker, believe it or not.
No.
I'll spend all the time in the world on him, but then TJ's going to say, hey, we actually need to focus on a few of the other players also available this offseason. And I'll say, fine, I'll digress, and we can talk elsewhere.
It's like we know K-Tuck is great, and he's a perfect fit in this outfield. It's like, and?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Now, last thing I'll say on Polanco, then we can transition. The $6 million option alone is almost definitely not happening. That's how I'd put it. I would be shocked if we find out this week that he's just going to pick up that option and nothing else. But could he make an announcement that he's going to stay in Seattle long-term this week? Possible. That's why we're talking through this. The $6 million option, though, alone, that's not happening.
Let's get to our reliever grades, and we are going to only grade the 5 qualified relievers in the Mariners bullpen. There's a stark difference in some of these grades. You'll see it when we get there, but so let's get to the first one.
Let's put it like this.
Oh, okay.
There may be some real dragon meme with the one funny-looking dragon in these grades. If anybody knows that meme, you know what I'm talking about.
And hopefully most of you listening know exactly what we're referencing. But to find out, you'll have to wait until we get there. So let's start off on the mountaintop with one of the really scary-looking dragons. Maybe the scariest of them all, in Andres Muñoz. What's your 2025 grade for Andres?
A. I mean, you could either go A or A+, but how much can you say about the guy? It's the 4th year in a row he has cemented himself as one of the best relievers in baseball. And relievers are fickle. To do what he's done 4 years in a row, it's pretty amazing.
Where is he stacking up in Mariners history now?
In terms of best relievers of all time, I mean, it's on some Mount Rushmore, right? With Kaz,
Eddie,
Sasaki.
since we have 4 years of this, I do feel like he's got a pretty solid discussion to be up there.
Is he the best one ever?
Maybe we could talk about that this offseason.
I don't know, man. Sasaki didn't have a sustained run like this in Seattle the way that Muñoz did. Just talking through it. Sasaki spent 4 years here too, but he had 3 really good years. And then his last year was very okay. I don't know. I feel like there's a case
Eddie
for
had
Muñoz.
the best year of all of them, the 2018 year.
Yeah.
Mooney's 2022 season, I'd say you have the JJ Putz year. So the 07 JJ Putz is up there. But the Mariners haven't had relievers accumulate this much value before. Not really. It's Eddie, Kaz, and Mooney. Am I forgetting anybody?
I mean, and even Eddie. Eddie had one big year. I guess if you count his rookie year where he came up in late July, August, he was really good that year. So a season and a half. Not like Mooney, not 4 years in a row.
Well, it's safe to say maybe after next year he will be number one, and maybe it'll be an indisputable number one. Maybe he already is indisputably number one. That's a good question. Leave us a comment and let us know if Mooney's the greatest reliever in Mariners history right now. On not the best singular season, we're talking about collectively the best. Because I'll tell you, what he's done these 4 years has been incredible, and every year it seems like he finds something sort of new about himself. Mm-hmm. Really. And this year he found the run prevention and the home run suppression of it all. He was still great striking guys out. He was still not great at controlling the strike zone at times. He walked, a lot of guys. But the expected numbers across the board were fantastic, the best he's ever had in his career. And the wins above replacement is tied for a career high with 2022. And he did it in, I think, roughly as many innings. So when you chalk that up for him, it gets hard to get any better. So I gave him an A. I think A+ was reserved for best in baseball, especially for Mooney, because Mooney's also shown us a better version of himself that 2022 season. So that's kind of the standard I hold that to.
What he did with his slider in 2022 was the best a single pitch of his has ever looked over the course of a year.
Yeah.
Will he ever get back to that? We don't know, but even if he doesn't, he has still been, again, arguably the best Mariners reliever ever and a top 10 reliever in baseball each of the last 4 years. Yeah. What he's done, as you talk about the home run suppression, he gave up 2 all year. And one of those was a total garbage time home run that meant nothing. The only meaningful home run he gave up all season was over the summer in that Twins game. Actually, summer, that was May. That was the only meaningful home run he gave up all season. He did not let the ball leave the ballpark.
And that's the key to being a good reliever. You're not going to give up crooked innings for the most part if you have the stuff like Andres Muñoz does, if you don't give up home runs. So home runs are the ultimate cheat code when it comes to beating good relievers and making their numbers look bad, because you can score 3 runs with one swing. Well, Mooney was making it this year. If you wanted to score against him, you had to get 3 hits in a row. To which I say, good luck. It's a lot harder than it sounds. So you had all that with him. He got a lot of ground balls this year as well. And then just, overall, you saw the progression of all of his pitches. The mix was mostly the same for him. He's really transformed into not just a strikeout pitcher. He's trying to also be a ground ball pitcher as well, which works out in the home run suppression department. My biggest takeaway for him, and I was wondering if you thought you could quantify this, how much of his success this year was because he only had to worry about pitching in 1 inning?
He has talked about he likes that better. He has talked about he's more comfortable in that role when he knows exactly what it's going to be. So, sure, there could be something there to the fact that he has a set regime, or a set routine, and is mentally set in his own head for what his role is going to be every night. I think that plays a factor. Now, that doesn't change the fact that he should have been in over Eduard Bazardo in Game 7 of the ALCS. That doesn't change, because in the playoffs, that stuff all goes out the window. And again, that's not an Andres Muñoz thing. He'll pitch when he gets told to pitch. That is a decision-making thing, which maybe we've touched on once or twice. Anyway, for what he did in the regular season, yeah, I think that may have helped him. The fact that he had a set role and he was able to just kind of run with it all year. Sure.
If you guys want the numbers and you're curious, like this is not how it looked under Scott's service. In 2024, Mooney pitched more than an inning 11 times in the regular season. This season, one time all year he pitched more than an inning. And
you know what?
How it broke down by appearances, he appeared in the 8th inning twice, in the 9th inning 55 times, extra innings 8.
I actually think the decreased usage in the regular season, innings-wise, pitch count-wise, probably had more to do with it than just throwing the 9th inning. I do think having the set routine helped him, but I think the decreased amount of usage and high leverage usage is the bigger deal there.
And he's shown fatigue over the course of his career when it gets to August and September, especially last year. His numbers were horrendous down the stretch, or average to horrendous. This year, it was like he didn't miss a beat. And it did really show.
Look, I was always a big fan of the way Scott Service managed his bullpen for the most part. Not that it was always perfect, but there was very sound process behind how he would use his guys and make decisions and pull levers. But I will say, I think the one thing about Scott is, even though he'd usually push the right buttons and make the right sound process, he would overwork those guys sometimes. Matt Brash really got overworked in 23. It led to Tommy John. Andres Muñoz, I think you could tell by 24 he was really getting overworked because he started to have the air come out of the balloon a little bit in August and September last year. But all that being said, I think that if it were up to me, I would still throw guys in different spots and use your best reliever when the leverage guys come up in the order. But I think the decreased pitch count plan for Muñoz this year helped him, and it helped him stay fresh throughout more of the year.
The only negative I could really take for Muñoz this season is his command has been getting worse.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's in the Matt Brash bucket. You know how we've talked about how Brash's stuff is so nasty that you can't always control where it's going? Mm-hmm. Muñoz has gotten to the point where his stuff's gotten so nasty that it has a little bit of that effect too. I mean, that two-seamer runs.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a hard thing to command. His slider has so much movement. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint. That changeup of his that he's now added, which he didn't throw that much, but he even talked to us about this in spring training with his changeup. He said, look, it moves a lot, which is really awesome, but it's not always the easiest pitch to control. So with that, when you have stuff that's that ridiculous, sometimes that does lead to you sacrificing a little bit of command, which is why you've seen Muñoz's walk rate be up a little bit over the last couple of years and why he'll throw a few more balls than he used to in 22. But we're nitpicking here when you are highlighting a season of a guy with a 1.7 ERA.
Mm-hmm. He just wasn't always pitching ahead in the count, and that, especially in the postseason, would bug me, though. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't someone you were going to get mad at in the postseason, but sometimes he would struggle throwing strikes. And I think in terms of grading on sort of this department, I went to look at his Stuff Plus, which, by the way, I don't think this with the eye test, but however Fangraphs grades it and how they look at it, his Stuff Plus is deteriorated 3 years in a row. I don't know if it seemed like it to you, but that's what Fangraphs says. They have his Location Plus, which is overall how well he throws good pitches, at an 87, meaning it's 13% below average. So sometimes I guess if the stuff moves that much, that's how it's going to be. But it did not grade out very well.
I wonder if any of the Stuff Plus going down has anything to do with the fact that he's throwing more fastballs than ever before, and it's hard to grade out well on fastball Stuff Plus than it is on a lot of the breaking balls. Because now that Muñoz has this two-seamer, he is throwing his four-seamer and two-seamer combined this year about 50% of the time.
It's possible, but if you look at the individual grades on those pitches, let me just tell you about his slider from 2022 to 2025. In 2022, it was 150. 2025, it's 119.
Okay. So then, it's deteriorated.
Bit of a drop. And I'd say some of the results have showed that. He has not had quite the same strikeout stuff. Still elite, still very elite, but not quite where it was. But I think we've said this all 3 years we've handed out grades for Andres Muñoz talking about this. I'm just honestly just yearning for that season back. I so badly want to watch that version of Muñoz again because he was so dominant.
Yeah, but can we really get that worked up about it? Look at what he just did this year.
No. But I always reminisce.
It's funny, the actual numbers that are spit out on the results of the slider rather than the actual stuff are a little closer to 22 than you might think. Opponents actually had a lower batting average and a lower slug against his slider this year in 25 than they did in 22.
Wow. Okay.
So the actual stuff of it was a lot nastier.
Eat it, nerds.
Exactly. Eat it, nerds. We're nerds, so I can't really say that. The stuff of it was better 3 years ago, but the results, people aren't getting hits off it.
Before we get to our next reliever, Lyle, would you like to read an ad?
I would. Let's talk to you guys about our friends over at Pagacha's Pub 85. You guys hear us talk about it. That's over in Kirkland. It's an awesome spot, a neighborhood bar that you can go check out with your friends with 20 TVs in the place. So with the NFL on, Seahawks in full swing, man, have they been good. Shout out to
my God.
Yeah, they are. I mean, you need something to hold you over until the Mariners season starts again and baseball actual games start again. How about the Seahawks? Man.
Yeah, man.
Anyway.
Hopefully they just take us all the way up to it.
That'd be great. So if you want to go hang out with your friends and watch the Seahawks, watch some NFL, college football, basketball's now in full swing, college hoops are about to get really started in full swing, head over there. Pagacha's Pub 85. You can also have some great food, and if you go during happy hour, you can get drinks that are $3 and $4 from 2 to 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday. Yeah. Long happy hour specials, awesome deals, a bunch of TVs to watch all the sports you desire over with your friends. That's Pagacha's Pub 85 in Kirkland.
What is your grade for Matt Brash?
Another A. If you had told anybody at the start of this season that Matt Brash was going to return from Tommy John surgery, make over 50 appearances, get out of the year fully healthy, and have an ERA sub 2.5, are you taking that? Because I am.
Yes, but we almost got a new Matt Brash. Like, this is a totally different version of Matt Brash than what we saw pre-injury. It's like he at the end of 2023, he like walks into this portal and outspits a different Matt Brash. It's just not the same guy. Like, this is not the 100-mile-an-hour fastball overpowering sweeper Matt Brash. The sweeper is still really good, but everything else, what we saw from Matt Brash this year is totally different. Like, it is almost a different reliever.
Well, to be fair, in his first 2 big league seasons, when he was throwing that four-seam fastball that would run up toward 100, it got hit pretty hard. For as hard as it was thrown, it was pretty straight. It didn't have a ton of movement. And I think Matt Brash and the Mariners clearly picked up on that because he altered things a little bit in 25. He only threw his four-seam fastball about 5% of the time. That's a lot different than the near 35% he was throwing at the first couple seasons. Now he's throwing that four-seam fastball a lot less. He's added a two-seamer. He's added a changeup. He just does more now.
I do think part of the reason for that is because his velo is down. Velo is down this year. Almost 2.5 miles an hour.
Well, he wasn't throwing the four-seamer, so it makes sense.
Well, no, that's his four-seam velocity was down 2.5 miles an hour.
Which isn't totally unexpected coming off Tommy John. But again,
exactly. So he had to adapt. And he showed us he's adaptable.
Which might have been for the best. Because again, even pre-Tommy John, when he was throwing that four-seamer a lot, got hit hard.
Here's the breakdown by pitch. Year to year. Pre-injury, in 2023, Brash was at 51% slider, 33% fastball, 8% curveball, and he threw one changeup. One single changeup. Post-injury this year, 60% slider, 22% sinker, 12% changeup, 5% fastball, 1% curveball. It's a different guy. He's up. His pitchers are. He's kind of trying to be Andres Muñoz, where everything is just moving in every direction. Like, that's what he's thinking. Andres Muñoz now has 2 arm side breaking pitches and 1 glove slide breaking pitch. Matt Brash essentially has the same thing now. I would like to see another full, healthy season of him throwing it to say this 1,000% works for him. But overall, it was still really good. I just know I know Matt Brash is nasty enough to strike out 35% of batters, and he didn't do that this year. Like, that's my nitpick. So, like, a totally healthy Matt Brash, I think, can go out there and achieve that.
Which we might see in 2026. But again, coming off of Tommy John, you knew there was going to be some adjustment period, swinging back into what was nearly a full season of big league work. But you're right, with another full offseason, being healthy now, a full spring training, expected to break camp on time next year. Yeah, can he combine it all together and get back to the high strikeout rate, but also with the new and improved pitch arsenal? Sure. Yeah, I just mean, I think a big reason he gets this A is not just the overall results, but for coming back from Tommy John to do what he did. Really impressive. Not to say there wasn't some shaky outings this year. He would have stretches, just like a lot of relievers do, where he had a couple tough outings in a row and he would get hit and he would give up some walks. I think a big thing with Matt Brash this year is when he would get behind to the first batter early, that's when things would often go sideways for an outing. You could often tell in the first batter this year if Brash was going to have a good outing or not. When he would walk the first batter on 4 or 5 pitches and stuff wasn't there, sometimes it would continue that way throughout his outing. If he was on in the first batter, usually went much smoother. But to do what he did coming off of Tommy John this year, really impressive.
He did give up more homers this year than he'd ever given up on a rate basis. Remember when I was mentioning Muñoz's slider? I thought it took a step back. I was thinking of Matt Brash's slider. Matt Brash had a 15% drop-off in whiff rate on his pitch, which we can attribute to the injury, to coming back, not throwing as hard, not having as sharp stuff. So that's something I'm looking for Matt Brash going into next season, to see it get back up to the level it was at pre-injury. But otherwise, you have a 2.47 ERA, 3-pitch reliever, 4-pitch reliever. Usually grades out pretty well. So
it's really good.
Good for Matt Brash. Gabe Speier, what's your grade?
Another guy that had to battle injuries last year, almost essentially had a lost season after April in 24. Come back and do what he did in 25, another A.
I gave him an A+ because he is the best lefty reliever. Well, maybe one of two, him and Aroldis Chapman.
You can throw Hader in there too, but yeah, it's a short list, man.
I love going back to Gabe's 2023, where it was just this wonderful combination of ground balls, strikeouts, and lack of walks from him. It's honestly the perfect relief combination. He arguably outdid that this past year.
Mm-hmm.
Strikeout minus walk rate is the stat that I think is very helpful for evaluating pitchers. You strike a lot of guys out and not walk a lot of batters. Well, that's exactly what Gabe Speier did. 33% strikeout rate, 4.5% walk rate. The only relievers in baseball who had a bigger difference in strikeout rate to walk rate than Gabe Speier were Mason Miller, Aroldis Chapman, Cole Reagans, and Edwin Diaz. Those guys collectively, if you put them out on the open market at Gabe Speier's age, would collect north of $20 million a year in salary. Gabe's going to make less than $2 million next year. It's a good deal.
It's funny. We talk about how the Mariners finding these bullpen arms off the street and turning them into stars has happened a little bit less over the last couple years. They didn't really have that guy in 24. They did this year, and we'll get to him next. But to find the gem that they found in Gabe Speier in 23 and to have it carry over now as long as it has, just awesome.
It wasn't even like a one-off year, because we've seen that for some of these bullpen types the Mariners have developed. Like Drew Steckenrider was a one-and-done. Justin Topa breaks my heart. It probably was because of injury, but he had the one really good year in 2023. Hasn't quite gotten back to that at all. And the Mariners traded him, and Justin struggled to stay healthy with the Twins. But Gabe,
he had a full healthy year this year,
but it wasn't as good.
Wasn't as good. He was solid. Like his FIP was about 3. It was 3.04 to be exact. So ERA was a little inflated. You're right. It was not the same as 23. To just highlight your point, wasn't like Gabe Speier.
And we had full faith in Gabe, but there was no guarantee he was going to step up this year and he was going to dominate. But he got healthy in the offseason, ramped back up, and said, I'm making an emphasis to throw as hard as I can again. And man, I mean, it worked out to the best of his ability to come back this year, get his fastball velocity back to where it was in 23, and show that he's not a one-off. And he's here to stay, and he's here to dominate. And he's what every team wants in their bullpen, a high-leverage, high-strikeout lefty. That those don't grow on trees. And the Mariners have one in Gabe Speier, and that's why he gets an A+, because he is one of only a handful of guys in Major League Baseball that does what he does. Different than a righty.
Very different. When you're punching out batters to rank yourself in the 96th percentile of the league in strikeout rate, 98th percentile of the league in chase rate, which is basically back to what he did in 23, dominance. You're paying that guy barely over the league minimum. That is crazy.
And think about this for this year, too. Crazy number I didn't even realize. His WAR is almost triple what it was in 23.
I think that's a result of just striking more guys out.
Well, he had a 29% strikeout rate that year.
Yeah, he did, but it was even higher in 25.
I know. Shout out our guy Gabe. The stuff plus went up as well. The pulled fly balls are also like a really bad thing for relievers to allow, because that you'll allow home runs if you give up a lot of pulled fly balls. He went from one of the worst last year in all of baseball to one of the best this year, and it's great. Very happy for Gabe, and looking forward to him having another solidified spot in this bullpen next year. So he did, I guess, change a little bit. Like
his sinker was better this year.
He was more sinker in 23. He was a little more fastball in 2025. Fastball was a little bit more of his emphasis pitch.
Run value-wise, this was the best year for his sinker, though. That was where he ran into problems last year. And again, most of that's attributed to injury. But his sinker really, really, really got crushed last year just by the numbers. And again, probably just wasn't healthy. But this year, by run value, sinker graded out really well. Two-seamer was really good. So it's funny. I think injuries are the only thing that really prevented Speier from having a really good year last year, too, because through April, he was one of baseball's best relievers. And then I think the injury got to him, because that's when he missed time with the shoulder and he never got back fully right. Different story this year.
Yeah.
And they're going to lean on him again in 26 pretty heavily, because they're going to need him.
Next reliever we'll grade, the infamous Eduard Bazardo. Your grade?
He gets an A.
Wow. The home run does not detract.
No, because he was told to pitch in that situation. He didn't get a say. The decision gets an F for that. Eduard Bazardo, however, gets an A for the season.
I give him an A- just because of the result. But the regular season grade was another A.
Well, you're gonna take him down a full plus or minus for that?
Yes. Because the pitch was bad.
It was a bad pitch, but again, he never should have been in there.
He could have thrown a better pitch. Literally the most impactful pitch thrown in Mariners history, and not in a good way.
Shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Yes, but
I know.
I mean, again, we said this on a show about a week ago. I'll just say it again. Fangraphs gave Dan Wilson an F for his playoff bullpen management. And a lot of that is to do with Bazardo. It's not the whole reason. There was plenty of bad that went around in that playoff field. But yeah, he got an F. That's on the manager. It's on the coaching staff. It's not on Bazardo.
If it was completely on Bazardo, we would be down at a B+, but he's not. So A-.
All right, fine.
I also say A- because the peripherals were not as good as they were last year. It's funny. You remember at the end of last year, we were talking about Eduard Bazardo. It's like, wow, he's like a savant darling, but the raw stats don't look as good. This year, the savant stats are good. They're not as good as they were last year. Like last year, he had over 30% strikeout rate. His walk rate was lower. His expected numbers were all way lower than they are right now. But it was like this year that was the real production year for him.
Well, And that's what gets into a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation here, and maybe a real conversation that'll lead into the offseason more about why the Mariners need to go get some more bullpen arms, at least one real one. Is Eduard Bazardo going to be a guy that's a little one and done, that had one big year? I ask that because, to your point, there's nothing really on Savant that screams that it's repeatable, other than he didn't give up a lot of hard hit baseballs, which is the good news. But doesn't get chase, doesn't get swing and miss, not really a ground ball pitcher. And he was also used a lot. I mean, he threw so many times over the course of the year. And you factor in all that, I just wonder how that plays out in 2026.
The combo's not good. For the first thing you have to think about is injury, because when guys get used that much, especially when they're used as much as he was used in October in high-pressure playoff baseball, that's the first question that comes to mind. And, like, the second question that comes to mind, like, he's just got to have a strike. Like, if you're a reliever and you don't have a strikeout pitch and you're not a ground ball reliever, how are you getting outs?
I don't know, but the run value on his two best pitches are pretty nuts. It's a weird combo. So he gave up a batting average way under 200 against both the sinker and the slider, which are his two pitches. But then the actual peripherals say, while the results were good in 25, it doesn't scream repeat in 26.
Maybe not a 2.52 ERA repeat. He could be a solid reliever.
Well, he could be more what I thought he was going to be for the most part when he started to pitch well this year. Because it took me till basically the end of the regular season to say, all right, yeah, you can throw him in leverage. Because almost all year I said, look, Bazardo's throwing well, credit to him. I didn't think he was going to be much of anything heading into 25. I was wrong. But I said with all that, a lot, don't throw him in leverage. And I was wrong about that because they needed him in leverage in the postseason. And other than in a Game 7 where he never should have been in that game, he really thrived. So you're right. Maybe next year he's more of the original role I thought he was going to be. Maybe he'll be a guy with an ERA in the threes. He can throw in lower leverage and play a role, but you still need to go get another dominant bullpen arm this winter.
He can still be exactly what Dan Wilson called him, like a swing man or like the pivot man early in a game if your starter's struggling in the 5th or 6th inning and you need him to come in there and pitch. Mm-hmm. I think that's totally fine for him. I think you can continue that for him. There's just, like, unless there's more growth, which there, of course, could be some more growth, projecting this further is a little bit more difficult for him because there's a bit of an unknown. Like, we'll go back to last season, right, where the results were bad. We had an expected ERA of 2.4. This year, his expected ERA is like 3.3, despite the fact his regular ERA is 2.5. It's like, what are we getting? We don't know. Like, even the predictive stats are struggling to predict this guy as well. But for the season that he just pitched, he was great, and he had a case to be the Mariners' postseason hero, if not for one of the Mariners' postseason heroes, if he didn't throw that fucking pitch to George Springer.
Yep. Never should have been in the game.
No, he shouldn't. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else on him. It's an interesting case to look at for the Mariners bullpen.
Yeah.
Now the guy I think we're most excited to talk about, the final qualified Mariners reliever from the 2025 season. Lyle, can you give me your grade for Carlos Vargas?
Yeah, he gets a D.
See the heel turn of grades here? We just had 4 A's in a row.
I mean, we said there was going to be a funny looking dragon on this grade scale.
See, Lyle said D. Carlos Vargas gets an F for me. And I'm not just holding some grudge for Carlos Vargas because he's difficult to watch and he doesn't throw enough strikes and he doesn't strike guys out. And overall, it makes you age watching Carlos Vargas on the mound. I have one stat I need to read to you for Carlos Vargas. The job of any player in baseball, Lyle, is to win games and to accumulate value, is it not?
It is, and for a reliever, it's to get outs. For any pitcher, it's to get outs.
Carlos Vargas threw over 70 innings this year. Among every pitcher in baseball to throw at least 70 innings this year, Carlos Vargas was the least valuable in all of baseball. The least.
That really...
If that doesn't say F, I don't know what does. Some of you don't believe WAR. Fine. Tell me my eyes are lying. I don't think they are.
Well, it's a good thing he threw in so many important games this year, I gotta say.
He threw 15 more innings than Gabe Speier and Andres Muñoz. Sorry. Let me say that correctly. That was not right. He threw 15 more innings than Andres Muñoz and Gabe Speier threw this year.
I think that's what you said.
Oh, I thought I said games. Sorry. Oops.
Either way. I mean, again, doesn't a lot of that go back to decision making?
Actually, let me clarify myself even further. So you heard I gave Carlos Vargas an F. Let me expand on that a little bit more. This is not just a Carlos Vargas F. This is an organizational F.
So the reason I gave him a D and not something lower is because, look, I think the two of us were pretty adamant about this year, and we were not alone by any stretch to say that he was a very difficult watch. By the way, we don't have any facts or certainty behind this, but if you're just going off of watching the games, I don't think his own catcher really likes catching him. Dude, you can see Cal when he's back there and he catches Vargas. He looks like he wants no part of catching his games because he's Nuke Lelouch out there throwing balls all over the place. They're skipping to the backstop. They're hitting off his arm, off his knee. I mean, it's... Again, that's pure speculation, but I get the sense Cal doesn't love catching Carlos Vargas. Anyway, when you look at what Vargas did this year, I mean, there are some things that stood out that were positive, which is why I tried to give him something other than the lowest possible grade. He had one pitch at least grayed out well by run value in his two-seamer. Now, he gave up a decent batting average against it, which, again, goes back to a lack of getting outs. He was still giving up a 282 batting average against his best pitch, which is not great. So, again, I'm trying here.
To think of the two people on this podcast vouching for Carlos Vargas, it's you.
Well, I go off on enough tangents about enough things. I'm trying to use some level of
we need to balance it out a little bit. I see.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, part of the other organizational F, Lyle, was the fact he was, deployed in high leverage situations earlier the year, and the fact that I guess he was on the roster all year, which I guess, but that more comes down to the fact the Mariners had, after their main four guys, a lot of middling bullpen arms. So, great. But it didn't make watching Carlos Vargas any easier. Knowing that, it's like, oh, he's middling to bad. The rest of these guys are all middling to bad, but he throws 100.
Maybe they should have given Will Klein a shot.
How'd he do in the World Series?
Terribly, didn't you hear? Yeah. Anyway, the other part of the Vargas equation here is if you want to look to things for him to build off in 2026... is there some world where he could break out next year? Sure. I'm not putting a very high stake into it, but it's just when you throw 100 and you're giving up a ground ball rate that's in the 95th percentile of the league, that is something. That's pretty good. When you're giving up a hard hit rate that isn't very high, it ranked in the 87th percentile. It's pretty good. So this is why I didn't give him a full-on F. Along with the fact, I guess, his actual earned run average was still under 3. This is not me saying he had a good season. This is just me highlighting why I didn't give him a straight F. So there are a few things that you could look at for him and say, maybe something clicks in 26. Just with the stuff and the lack of hard hit baseballs, maybe something clicks. However, I will say what we said a million times this year, which is what drove us the craziest. How do you throw 100 and strike out less than 6 batters per 9 innings, which for a reliever is awful?
Who breaks out first, Gregory Santos or Carlos Vargas?
I mean, Gregory Santos, to be fair, already broke out. It was just in Chicago.
Yeah, like last millennia.
2 seasons ago, but sure.
And when I vividly remember when the Mariners acquired Carlos Vargas, and you see some of his numbers, it's like, oh, the Mariners will put their finishing touches on him, and he'll break out, and he'll be similar to Andres Muñoz. And that was about 2 years ago.
Yeah, that man did not throw a single pitch in the big leagues in 24.
No, and he wasn't particularly good in Tacoma because he couldn't get guys out.
I mean, remember how flabbergasted everybody was when all the leakings came out, when people were piecing together what the roster was going to look like in spring training, when they saw Legumina get optioned at the end of March, and everybody's like, Carlos Vargas is going to make the roster.
The only reason he was on this roster in the first place is because otherwise they had to cut him.
I know, and there's still a part of me that believes they did not want to just fully admit defeat on the Geno trade, and they were trying to get anything out of him. And I figured he was going to be on the roster a couple weeks, and then he stayed on the roster all year.
I don't think front offices are going to evaluate wins and losses by WAR necessarily. But again, if we're going to just use it as a cursory potential measuring stick, one of many measuring sticks, literally no one did it worse. And watching the games this year, I'd have to agree. My eyes back it up.
Again, going into 2026, Carlos Vargas needs to enter the year as the absolute last guy in the bullpen, used in nothing but mop-up duty, and until he proves otherwise, that should be his role, which not only is on the Mariners to go add more impact bullpen arms, but it's also on the manager to stop deploying him in actual leverage. By the way, let me say it again, in-game strategist. I mean, we've had a couple weeks since the season's ended. I haven't seen any in-game strategist hired. We're waiting.
So who should the in-game strategist... So Dan's going to have his board of bullpen decisions. Who does the in-game strategist take off the board that Dan's not allowed to use? It's like, so Thornton won't be available next year because he's going to be hurt with the Achilles.
All year?
Vargas.
I bet you Thornton comes back at some point.
Okay. So Thornton's off the board. In the back pocket. So is Carlos Vargas.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I know Thornton ended up, unfortunately, getting injured, but when he was healthy this year, it was almost like a knee-jerk reaction.
He had the title.
Yes. I was going to say, I mean, Dan could not stop using him to save his life.
Not even that. He was also the worst reliever in baseball by WAR.
What is it with Dan wanting to use the worst relievers in baseball by WAR at like the highest rate possible?
I don't know. If Carlos Vargas blows us away and puts up a win above replacement next year, I will be the happiest man on planet Earth. But I just have nothing to go off of here. So my grade is going to remain as it is. As Frank the Tank would say, F.
Well, Denzel Crocker would say the same thing. Did you watch Fairly Odd Parents growing up?
Not enough to remember that.
I mean, Denzel Crocker wasn't the main character, but when you think of characters from that show, I don't think anybody jumps out more than him.
It has probably been at least 20 years, if not longer.
Man, I was a huge Fairly Odd Parents fan. I was a huge Denzel Crocker fan, to be real. Yeah.
Denzel Crocker F on Carlos Vargas.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I gave him a D because there was some decent peripherals, but in-game strategist, please. And that's not a Vargas thing. Just like put Vargas in low leverage. Just use him in mop-up. Use him at the back. Use him when you're winning or losing by a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those are the reliever grades. Again, we said there was going to be 4 really good ones. I think we just spent 10 minutes on the last guy.
How funny is it that of all of our grades episodes, we spent the longest talking about the bullpen arms, almost 100% because of Carlos Vargas.
Well, and because certain Eduard Bazardo decisions that were made that clearly got leaked out into this show, too.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
We didn't even get to Gabe Speier, Kerry Carpenter, or lack thereof. There was too much else to go off of.
No, and we didn't even get a chance to talk about all the other fun Mariners arms from this year. We didn't get to talk about Luis F. Castillo at all.
Well, I think we can save people the time. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be doing a decision-making grade for the year. If you would like that, you can just go right over to Fangraphs because they highlighted it all. So
Yeah.
All right, that just about wraps up this edition of the Marine Layer Podcast. You guys know the drill. You want to listen to the Full Form Podcast, you can do so wherever you get your audio pods. Make sure you download. Please go rate and review 5 stars. It really helps if you do. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, go hit subscribe. That's the best way you can support the channel is hitting subscribe on YouTube. You get notified when we post new content, keeps you up to date on everything, pushes videos out more to people. So go hit subscribe if you're able on YouTube. It really does help us out. You can go to our website, marinelayerpod.com, where you can find everything, which includes our merch and our Patreon. Again, that's marinelayerpod.com. And you can find us all across social media at marinelayerpod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.